Hi, I'm here with Richard Bowser, editor of Property Investor News, and we're going to have a little chat about due diligence specifically when doing joint venture deals. Now everyone will agree the market is coming to a period of a little bit of softening. There was a lot of exuberance around doing JVs and investing money with people and projects and stuff like that. Now, the problem is, of course, is that it's all down to the figures. And if someone entered into a JV deal based on figures that were done earlier in the year, do you think many people have actually projected different types of scenarios going forward as to how those figures might actually pan out?
Yeah, it's about forward risk assessment and crunching the numbers and not being too optimistic, as opposed to working out what is the worst case scenario in advance and then looking ahead, but also looking at the individual and the person that you're going into the deal with, whether you're the supplier of the finance or whether you're the person who may be potentially at risk with a development deal that you think stacks. Maybe because of the marketplace softening, what you're bringing to the table may be a little bit more at risk if you get into an agreement with someone and the terms are disadvantageous to you.
Yes. Do you have any, I mean, there's the person that you're investing in, there's the deal and its numbers, there's their competence and ability to do that deal, and then there's the market generally,
Yep.
I guess. Do you have any tips on doing due diligence on the person that behind a deal?
Yeah, I mean, what we have to remember with joint ventures is essentially it's a business deal, and what amazes me, or has amazed me over the years, is you see very successful people in other business sectors come into property, and for whatever reason they seem to shed the principles that have enabled them to become successful in their current or previous occupation, which has enabled them to have the wealth to then put into property. So yeah, it's just about doing fundamental risk assessment and ignoring the sales fluff or the numbers as they seem to be surrounding the deal. It's a business, and therefore you're investing in a business, whether it's one property or a piece of land that you might be creating 250 apartments from or whatever. So it's about common sense. It's about not taking people's word for granted, asking for evidence to back up whatever the proposition is, firm evidence. If it's about valuations, well, what are those valuations based on? What are the per square foot based on? How robust is that analysis?
Yes. And also scenarios, I guess. I mean, do you think people have actually projected realistic scenarios about what the market will be like a year or so down the line when a development will actually be finished?
No. All too often, no.
Whose fault is that? Developer, investor, both?
Well, property developers inevitably are optimists. They have to be. But where are we now? We're at the end of 2017, going into 2018 now. It's not that long ago, 10 years ago, when we had a marketplace where within the space of 10 or 12 months, a swathe of small to medium-sized property developers got wiped out of the market because they were too optimistic. They'd stretched the elastic band of optimism too far at the wrong time, and they were exposed. And unfortunately, then there was some cynical exploitation by certain banks who were able to call in the equity that they saw, and those people breached the covenants, etc., etc.
What do you think about due diligence in crowdfunding? Do you get the feeling that because people are investing smaller sums, and there may be, instead of 3 investors in a deal, you might have 100 investors in a deal investing much smaller sums. Do you feel that investors kind of drop their due diligence because the sum is lesser?
I would possibly. We're dealing with 100 or 50 or 20 individuals, each with, whether they're led by emotion, by buying into the person that's selling the proposition, or the perceived public image that that person is being able to project. At the end of the day, it comes down to whether it's £100 or £100,000 or £1 million that you're putting into someone's deal or a deal individually or collectively via crowdfunding. You can learn an awful lot about, with crowdfunding. I think it's a great proposition, a great evolution in the marketplace. It enables people with relatively small amounts of money to get involved, to get their hands dirty, even with £500 or £1,000, and get access to a lot of data and a lot of information on development and planning that you would otherwise be denied to.
Yes. I think. I just love everything Warren Buffett says on this sort of subject of investing and due diligence. And one of the things he says is plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Absolutely.
So yes, we are naturally optimistic. Both you and I are optimistic people,
quite. Yeah.
But we've got to look and plan for the worst case scenario, and make our own assessments of the likelihood of that scenario occurring.
Yeah, we can't predict everything. We can't, there's analysis paralysis, but there's also common sense, and there's also laziness. All too often I can say in 16 years of publishing Property Investor News, I've seen so many examples of people buying property and they've given about as much thought to it as buying a tin of baked beans off a supermarket shelf. And we know this, particularly in the up cycle, the uplift parts of the cycle. And then of course, then it's buyer regret, it's buyer remorse. And then they look to blame. At the end of the day, you can look in the mirror. It's your decision. It's your signature on the check. It's your finger on that keyboard to press send.
I think you made an interesting comment earlier about how you see people who are highly successful in other businesses and don't apply the same thing in.
Yes.
And I was just thinking about a couple of things that you said, and I'm wondering whether it's because people buy their own home and it's an emotional decision and not a money decision as such. People transfer that to buying business property, if you like.
Yeah, they're thinking with their heart, not their head.
Yes.
Brand new properties like football club chairman. I think with Premier League football club chairman, historically people buy football clubs as an ego trip or whatever, and they ditch all their previous business sense. And they get captivated by owning a football club and all of that stuff, and then all of a sudden they're 200, 300, 400 million pound in debt.
Yes, that's very true, because what I've found in things like commercial property, there are people who live in an area that like to own the building, the freehold of the local Starbucks in the high street.
Quite.
Because that is a trophy, and it's a bit of an ego.
Quite.
And so I see that happening in the property space as well. But you've got to be doubly sure that trophy is actually not just the trophy.
No, it needs to represent fundamental value. What's within that building, the envelope of the building, what's the opportunity to gain planning or change of use, what's the rental income stream, what's the forward projection for that particular area in terms of jobs, in terms of earnings, etc.
Yes. Okay, well, I think we're more or less out of time. Thanks very much, Richard. And there are plenty more videos on this page, so do scroll around and watch some more. Bye for now.